Screencast 50, Charting Part 4, Data-Aware Formatting. Here's the report I've been working on. And the last thing I did was I set I made a nice style template for it, and we customized it, and now we have this pretty chart. And you'll notice that, again, the last few values are colored red. And I use that as a way of teaching you how to get data in your data set, with this ordinal number to be specific, and I use that to compute a dynamic color. So the reason I did that is to illustrate a technique, and now we're going to use it in a specific way. And what we're going to do here is we're going to think about this data, and clearly it's viewing history, right? And one thing that's not clear in viewing history, if you actually look at some of these blog posts, is that you want to know why there are dips in viewing history, right? Is it related to weekends, for example? So one thing that I'd like to do in charts like this is highlight the weekdays differently than the weekends. So I'm going to show you now how to apply that technique I showed you earlier about the ordinal number and apply it to the actual data coming in and do some real useful dynamic formatting. So what we want to achieve is essentially we want the weekends values to be somewhat diminished. In other words, instead of this specific color gray, maybe we want it to be a little lighter. And likewise, if the reds, maybe they want the reds lighter or something. So you want to diminish the value. That way it's clear visually that this is a weekend number and therefore the dips might be expected. Okay? So what we're going to do is have a gray, completely gray chart, and it'll get lighter gray on the weekends. Okay? So before I do that, I'm going to make the chart a little bigger so it's easier to see the bars and the colors. So it's 4 inches now. I'm going to change it to 6 inches. There we go. Bars are a little bit wider now. Now let's do the formatting. So we already have a method here called getColor. Oops, let me move it here. There we go. And what does getColor do? It takes an integer, and if it's less than 25, I get gray. If it's greater than that, I get red. And what we want to do is not use the ordinal, we want to use the date. Okay? Now, I could just replace this with the system.datetime. I'm going to keep it, and for a future example, I want to reuse it. But I'm going to add a new parameter here called system.datetime. And we'll just call that date. Okay? So let's go ahead and just build it. And you'll see the error. It's saying the chart area field style has invalid expression for property background color. GetColor is invalid. Argument's wrong. And we think we all know why that is. Because this area here, this fill style, which I've overridden, says GetColor and only passes in one value. So let's edit it. And what do we want here? This was the ordinal. We're going to add the date. So put a comma there. Oops. Sorry, this window came up. Fields, we want date.value. There we go. Now we'll just hit OK and go ahead and just build again to make sure we've caught that error. Perfect. So it's compiling. It's compiled correctly. Let's just make sure nothing's messed up in the view. You should see no change. Right? No change. Perfect. Now we're going to actually take into account the date value. So what do we want to do is, if it's a weekend, a different number, right? A lighter gray. So the logic will look something like this. If the date.day of week, and I'll put another parentheses here because I'm going to have to check two things, equals system.datetime.day of week.Saturday, or date.day of week equals system.day of week.Sunday. Then do one color, else do something else. So if it's a normal day, we'll pick that darker gray, which is like this. Maybe I'll make it even a little darker to emphasize the difference. Just a little bit darker. And then I'll copy that value, but I'll change it to be a little lighter. C. So let's try, I don't know, E. That may be a little bit too light. Let's give it a shot. And then I'll delete this old logic. So now we're computing by the date value. Okay, it succeeded. Let's take a look at what happened. Now do you see? The weekends now are highlighted. And we can see something interesting. Actually, the views don't really dip so much on the weekend. And oddly enough, on Sundays it seems to rise a bit, and Saturdays are a little bit slower day. So that's an example of how to use some dynamic formatting based on the data to reveal a pattern that isn't obvious, right? And so that's another like cool little thing you can do. And again, this technique is something we're going to build on in future screencasts. Okay, see you then.